Hello, hello, beautiful people. How are you doing? Please say hi in the comment section and let me know where you are joining me from. My name is Flora Basie. I am a digital accessibility expert and founder at Linoratech. Linoratech is simply an incredible company that is helping leaders, professionals with ensuring accessibility and inclusion in digital products such as website, application, or document. Now, again, don't feel shy. This show is named Diverse Perspective because we want to hear all voices. And I think all voices matter. I see someone say, hi, joining from Toronto. Yes. Hi, how are you doing? I'm super happy that you're here. Please don't feel shy. Say hi. I can assure you that Sydney and myself, we can see all your comments. If you have any question, again, woo-hoo-hoo, drop those questions in the comment section. So today we are going to talk a little bit about going beyond disability and nurturing for employees and customer satisfaction. To tell you the truth, let me share how the person put it in my hair. I was talking to an incredible person a few weeks ago, and she said, Flora, did you know that retaining talent with disability equals retaining uh, customers with disabilities as well as attracting them? And I was like, wait a minute, what are you saying? Are you saying that business can earn more money and by just retaining talents with disabilities? And she said, yes. So she's here with me. I invited her. She's an incredible specialist in human resource and DEI. Her name is Ellen, Sydney Ellen Butler. And please welcome Ellen, Sydney, with me. I'm just so excited that I'm literally losing my words, which is quite interesting though. All right, so Ellen, please come over, say hi to Ellen. Hi, Sydney. So happy you're here. So excited about today's talk. You know, when you said to me that retaining talent with disability is equal to retaining and even attracting more clients, that got me super excited. But before we get into that, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, why you're passionate about what you're doing.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy Elaine Butler, and I'm the founder of Accessible Creates. And so growing up, I had to go to speech therapy and had all these different obstacles I had to overcome, and really understanding that HR wasn't as accessible as I would like to be. So I worked in HR for a little bit, and I was doing some work. I was always like, okay, I can help make HR more accessible. And then, as you know, the market in 2020 until continues to be very volatile and very up and down. And so I realized I could do more as an external trainer, consultant, speaker, and talk about the areas I'm passionate about.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. Usually, when I approach most of my customers, the leaders, the developers, we always talk about the digital side of accessibility. But what you are bringing here is the fact that accessibility is good everywhere, and that include also in human resource within the processes, the hiring, and probably even more. So we are going to talk a lot about that today, which I think is exciting because getting more clients, it's usually what most business wants, right? To provide services, to provide goods, or to provide information. But if what they have is not inclusive and accessible, they're probably limiting a lot of people. So one thing that comes to mind is usually who are the people with a disability, because you spoke about retaining talent with disability. Who are the people with a disability? I know many people have in mind, oh, it must be people who are blind, it must be people with mobility impairment, but who are they and why is it important to retain talent with disabilities?
Yeah, so disability is such a huge catch-all term. Like you said, a lot of people think it's blind, people that have physical mobility, people that use wheelchairs, but it's so much more than that. And also understanding that, for example, like mental health can be a type of disability that's often, overlooked, and there's a lot of stigma there. And it's understanding that it could change day to day. And, also employees are people that are neurodivergent and have different ways of thinking. And so there's apparent and non-apparent disabilities. And, just because you can't see the disability on someone does not mean they don't have a disability. And so really understanding that everything looks different day to day. If you have a disability, either apparent or non-apparent, your needs fluctuate. All human needs fluctuate, depending if you had a good day when you woke up this morning, or you like, nope, I didn't get enough sleep. The saying, woke up at the wrong side of the bed, you're
Yes.
grouchy, and, but just it's kind of exacerbated if you do have a disability. And so really looking at how can you better support people on the day to day, and what does that look like?
Definitely, definitely. And I think that's quite interesting. Please, audience, do you know any type of disability? Have you heard about any type of disability? What disability comes to your mind? Please, just don't be shy again. We're all friends by now. Just put a disability that you heard of or you know of in the comment section. If you're following me live, just do it now. If you are watching the replay, please also put your own thought in the comment section. I think that Ellen, Sydney, and myself, we love checking what people are saying, and also
Mhm.
it adds to the conversation and it gives a little bit more insight to everyone. I think that you are right. Most of the time, we think about a disability as being just something that is visible. But to your point, there is also a lot of invisible disability. Yes, I see Aliyah just said something. She mentioned ADHD. Oh, so true, Aliyah. And that is
Mhm.
not even visible unless you interact with the person and you realize the pattern and a few more things. But yes, there are so many invisible disability. And you mentioned like chronic illness, which is
Mhm.
also one of them. Even learning disability, deafness
Mhm.
sometimes is not spotted like right there. When you see someone, you assume
Mhm.
that they can hear until you talk with them, and then you really realize that, oh no, you know we need a different form of communication, or maybe if they're using a hearing aid, that helps also. Okay, I see someone, Bosco. Hi, Bosco. He said a drug addiction could be also a disability. It could be a limitation. It can create more
Mhm.
limitation, that's for sure. But what Hmm. Because I want to know, why is it important? Why is it important to retain talent with a disability now that we understand that there are different type of disability?
Mhm. Yeah, it's so important to retain talent with disability, because I think a lot of times companies are now trying to make the products and services more accessible, and that's so important. But like you mentioned at the beginning, if you don't retain disabled talent, you don't have those lived perspective, you don't have that diverse, that increases the innovation and increases, what people can do. And so really understanding that everyone has the right to have an accessible and inclusive workplace. And when people are passionate about different things, and that includes people with disabilities. I'm passionate about accessibility, and that's what I do for a living. But some, might be passionate about doing factory work, or be experts in certain areas. And actually, people with disabilities are more likely to get post-secondary education. But just then when they come to the interview process, the interview process is a barrier in actual getting it in, but into the workplace. But it's like we do have these educational backgrounds, we do have these expertise, and we want to leverage that. And so understanding that, I think a lot of companies still think, oh well, we'll retain entry level employees that have disabilities, and we can, but it's also like everyone has their strengths and their unique experiences, and people with disabilities are frankly resilient, and you want a resilient team member, especially during this current climate when everything's so up and down. But to have that resiliency is so important.
Yes. Oh, this is so, so true. I think that having a disability itself shouldn't be a limitation per se.
Hmm.
And I want to clarify something very quickly. I know that
Hmm.
Bosco, you said something around drug addiction. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Can you give me a little bit more context? I would say directly drug addiction without having a context. I'm not really sure how it fall under disability, but maybe Sydney, you have a little bit more clarity
Yeah, so
around that.
I think like even just talking about mental health, like I mentioned previously, mental health, sometimes people struggling with mental health are more likely to have drug addiction, and be aware of coping with their mental health. And even now, addiction is now becoming under the DSM-5 looked at as a type of mental health disorder and conditions. And so understanding that how that impacts how you show up in the world and how you show up at work.
Got it, got it. Oh, thank you so much for the clarity. I think that helps everyone, including myself. Thank you, Bosco, and thank you, Sydney. You mentioned something around the fact that it's really important to give a chance to everyone.
Hmm.
To go higher, to contribute in a higher place as
Hmm.
well. People with disability do not just have to get, as you said, the junior level when it comes
Hmm.
to the job market. There are so many incredible people. I think I heard a quote that used to say, if you're asking a fish to climb a tree, you know, uh,
Hmm.
that's not even fair. That's not where the genius of the fish
Hmm.
is. And then you make the fish feel like they are not capable of doing more, while actually they can do more. You just have to, create an environment or an
Hmm.
opportunity where they can really share. I remember also a funny story that I had with where someone told me, it's impossible. It's impossible. And I said, well, guess what? Human beings are not meant to fly, but we are all flying from one country to another country. How do we do
Hmm.
that? We create technology or product that help us go beyond those
Hmm.
limitations. So really, we need just to expand our mind. Sometimes it might feel a little bit difficult to accommodate at first, but it's just because we haven't wrapped up our mind around the processes that it may take to get there. I mean, we're flying, we're going to the moon. Come on. So I think that definitely people with disability are more adaptable. They always see things from a different angle, so that can create innovation. But you know what? I'm not gonna go ahead and spread all the beans. So, audience, what do you think about people with disabilities and their abilities to provide incredible value? I see Bosco said something. Okay, might not always be apparent. That is so true. There are so many disabilities that are not visible. I mean, guys, listen. I remember I saw also a few images that says with the caption of beautiful people smiling. Sydney,
Hmm.
I was like, oh, that is so nice. Happiness, happiness, happiness. And then I see the caption, the copy at the bottom of the image. It says, that is the picture of depression. And I was like, whoa, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes people go through a lot of things, but you cannot see, you cannot tell just by looking at them. So we want to be really mindful of everyone. But I love that. So let's talk a little bit more about a few tips or strategy that
Hmm.
company can, leverage to help with making maybe job post inclusive and accessible, or even the environment, especially from your experience and expertise in HR.
Yeah, so for it, like, having inclusive job posts, I think a lot of companies right now, like, okay, we have these diverse job boards and they're just rushing to post on them or just posting the original when they have. And they're like, well, at least I'm posting on the board. I'm finding out these job boards for people with disabilities or people that are neurodivergent or other areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and, leveraging that. But if you don't change the job posting, you're still not going to get people to be, it's like, there's that disconnect. It's like, okay, yes, you posted, but it's still confusing because you're still using the company jargon or industry jargon. What does it actually mean? You're still using terms, or like, for example, for a job description saying you have to lift heavy weight. Okay, well, how much weight? What does that look like? Heavy weight, that means something different to everyone. So really understanding what that looks like and actually having accommodations that you'd be willing to accommodate on the job. So like when again the weight, like have to lift heavy weights up to X, Y, and Z pounds, but can be accommodated and modified as needed. And also having an accommodation statement regarding the hiring process. I think a lot of times it is mandated, and but still a lot of companies don't really have it, or they have just the bare basics of it, or it's usually the end of the job description, the job posting. And but that kind of makes it seem like it was an afterthought. It should be at the beginning. Hey, you're about to read this job description. If you need to be accommodated for any of the things you're about to read in the process, this is who you can have a phone number, an HR number, or HR email for them to contact. Or I suggest even having and directly having an accessibility email if someone wants to focus on that in HR, to have and really understand that your company does care about accessibility and people with disabilities at the workplace.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. I see Chantal just she joined us and she said hi, joining from Queens West, Ontario. Yes, hi Chantal. She's like, I was so focused I lost track. Next time I'm setting my alarm to join the show on time. Yes.
That's hyper focusing. That's such a thing.
Yes, I know, right? Chantal, you can still check the replay by using the same link. So kudos for coming over. So, but you are so right. There is so many ways that we can make the job posting, the entrance for people with disability a little bit more welcoming or inclusive. I love that you said maybe paying attention to some of the information provided on the job description might be one place to start refining. And you mentioned also just providing language around the fact that you can accommodate, and if maybe there is a need for a different way of communicating the job, that could be also one thing. I know for a fact that a couple of people told me in the past, like they would go for a job interview, they're using a wheelchair, and then there is steps, they can't even get into the building, and things of that nature. That already, when you're going for a job interview, you're already like, well, excited, but at the same time
You're already stressed.
stressed. Stress. So if you add up the fact that it's almost time for the interview, you can't get in the building, there's no phone number to call or whatever, it's like so stressful at some point in time. So that add also in always the way the person is going to perform during the the call. And I know a few people with disability. I think that was it a neurodiversity, I don't remember exactly the name, but the story came in a way that this person would have loved to have maybe a few questions asked beforehand, which I know most company want to see the reaction of the talent right there. But I think that what is sometimes also important is the capacity of doing the job, not so much the surprise. Can you do this for? We understand that has been the way to do it for a long time, but maybe there is another way. Or maybe if the person disclose their disability, try to have an accommodation where you give them a few questions. And in terms of practice, like if you want to demo what they're doing, give them the time to do the test, because what is important again is the result, not the way. Everyone
Exactly.
do the work differently. Yes.
Yeah, I usually suggest that to companies because like having the questions ahead of time. I get you want the element of surprise of seeing how they react. So having the questions that really are assessing their ability to do the job and how they would act on the job. Have those questions ahead of time. You get a more polished answer. You get a more in-depth answer. You get a better answer and reflection of who the candidate is and what they would bring to the team. But and if you want to have that reaction, be like, okay, we're going to throw one surprise question, and still letting them know you're going to throw that question, and
Yes.
that just to see how they can answer a question on the fly, but still letting them know of that question, just not knowing them what the question actually is, and people. And I even say just like have that as your standard practice when you call for an interview, have that questions available. Accessibility helps everyone. We're all busy. We're single moms or dads, or people have families and other commitments outside of work, and so really being flexible with that.
Definitely. And audience, do you have any thought about what inclusive strategy or tips do you think that maybe organizations should be aware of? If you have any thought, just share it in the comment section. Again, this is a beautiful platform where you can share your thought openly. Like I, I
Hmm.
am not even
We want to
kidding.
hear it.
I have the right person here to talk with us and share a little bit of her experience. She has an amazing experience. But I want also to hear from you, audience, what are the different things that you've seen out there that has been limiting or maybe welcoming talent with
Hmm.
disability within companies? I know for a fact that I did hire a couple of people with a disability, Sydney.
Hmm.
One person was blind, one person has mobility impairment, so he uses his voice mostly to navigate and also a head mouse to navigate the computer, and also a person with a different disability. I'm not just going to disclose that, but um, uh, all of these people did work for me remotely, and that is another way of
Hmm.
accommodating for accessibility. Do you have
Hmm.
any thought around that?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. Remote work is very beneficial for people with disabilities, and actually, reminds me of what point I was going to make when it comes to interviews. I know having interviews. We realized during the pandemic that we can do interviews remotely. It's at the company money. It allows for people to have a wider base, and they can actually interview for other companies and more positions. And I think even if it's like your company, and especially if you are a remote based company or a hybrid company, or even if you're an on site company, having remote interviews is very beneficial because we realized during the pandemic we could do it. And even if it's like if it's for the first initial interview with someone, you're just getting a sense of who the candidate is a little bit more from their resume or the application. And so having that allows for more accessibility in the candidates. And as you progress, okay, have a second interview, then maybe you can do it in person again, but being mindful of accessibility and what accommodation they might need in person, or even accommodation that could be provided is having the remote interview. They're like, and having that space. And so just I think remote work is so important for people with disabilities. You can control your working environment, you can control your atmosphere and how you're working. And I think sometimes companies think that even though the employees are working remotely, they think, okay, it's kind of on them to create that space and to create that accommodation for themselves. And they're more likely to create that space for themselves, but it's still on you as an employer to make sure they know how to better make and accommodate the workspace as needed from home.
That is so true. Oh, I love it. I see one LinkedIn user. I don't know why Streamia is not showing me your name, but the LinkedIn user, you know who you are. I'm gonna check it later again on LinkedIn. But the LinkedIn user said that she or he, oh, I need to know. Okay, she or he has been supporting incredible people with disabilities, and also disclose that she or he has a disability. And I apologize if I'm not able to identify who you are in gender, so please bear with me.
Oh, it's her.
It's her. Okay,
It's
perfect. Thank
Connie.
you so much. See how it's crazy? Even when we have a limitation with the technology, sometimes we make mistakes. So thank you so much. She has disclosed that she has a disability, and oftentimes people are shocked because it's not a visible disability. Oh, I love it, love it. And she's always disclosing different things to help the business accommodate a little bit properly. And I think that's important. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know what we don't know until we start sharing with people. I understand that sometimes it can be frustrating to always have to repeat yourself and always ask for what you want. But trust me, it has to start somewhere until many voices add up, and then there will
Hmm.
be a big change in the company. But if everyone feels, they're not going to listen to me, I don't want this, well,
Hmm.
they don't know, that means everyone is fine
Hmm.
with whatever it is. So, yes, definitely, I agree. Bringing your voice toward sharing with your company, providing feedback, even if you're alone, just start doing that exercise. You will help the company be more aware of the situation, and eventually things will start changing. But it start with one voice, and it could be
Mm-hmm.
your voice at this point in time. I see Chantal also said something about the fact that she offering a menu of accommodation to
Mm-hmm.
all candidates as a regular thing during the recruitment process. Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I know of a friend who is deaf who went for an interview, and they were not able to accommodate him, and kind of he felt like this necessity not being met, okay, stop him from having the job because they were not prepared for that. And so the way they wanted to proceed with the interview was for him to read what they're typing and go back and forth. It was just an elevated, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it was more pressure. It was a bit weird. So it was hard for him, and of course that led to the, perhaps that candidate is not right for us. But he has the skills. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that you're not giving him the ability to express that skill in a different way. So it's quite important that we all have an open mind and see how we can bring and welcome every genius to the table, and give opportunity to all. Everyone is here to provide, strive, and learn more. I see Andrea said 100% agree. Yes. And I see LinkedIn user said, my story allows me to be a role model to others. Oh, gosh. I love that. I am applauding you. I am really giving you much love, much kudos, and I hope you inspire even more people to do that, because I think that sharing one story gives the power to everyone to show up and also to make change. Businesses, leaders are people. There are just people behind. So when they start learning a little bit about that human side, they create more. But let's move on. I see another comment, but let me ask you one last question, because we're
Mm-hmm.
getting at the top of the hour. The time is almost finished. And I really want to ask you the question, how can organization really nurture innovation with people with disability in mind? Are there a few things that you have in mind or you have heard of? Can they create innovation based on the fact that they are retaining talent with disabilities?
So really listening to people's lived experiences. I think like even with accommodation or just when someone enters the workplace. I know one person that's autistic, or we already have an autistic employee. We have that experience already. We have that. We covered our bases there. But everyone had that. That could example be a white woman that's autistic versus someone that's a person of color that's autistic, and that's completely two different lived experiences. So really listening to everyone's lived experiences and leveraging those and seeing how your products and services align with that, and even your day-to-day work operations, and kind of like how Connie mentioned, that representation matters, and being that role model, and using your voice, and when you see something wrong in the workplace, or you feel like, and as HR and employers or managers, really listening to your employees and be like, is everything okay? How can I best support you? What do you need from me? And really understanding that also the accommodation, and having that structured time isn't. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, you have to do. Other a lot of companies are doing like creative blocks. It's like, okay, have creative blocks and have that time to think of something innovative for the company, or to make the workplace better. But it's like, okay, it's great having those blocks, but some people be like, that's too much pressure. I can't, then you have a block because you feel pressure to. So having that unstructured time to be creative, and like have them set a time in their day where it's like, okay, yes, they're working, but they can set a time like half an hour or 45 minutes to think of something creative as they see fit. They're working on something and they're like, oh, this isn't working, or like, and they go, let the train of thought go and let them do and explore in different ways.
Ooh, I love it, love it. I think that the LinkedIn user said that representation absolutely matters, and so she even proposed that we should have a representation on the interview
Mm-hmm.
panel, and that makes sense because While people with disabilities might not acknowledge certain challenge that a person, a talent with a disability might have during the interview, a person with a disability might be able to kind of perceive what is
Mhm.
happening right there. Oh, I love it. And I
Well,
see
I
that.
remember I said in the I remember I used to have interviews when I was still trying to have a traditional job. I was like, so what is your you don't have to just tell you exactly what disability they have or who it is on your team, but even understanding it's like, okay, do you have people with disabilities in your leadership team? What does that look like? And they're like, and calling them out on that kind of and being like, do you have that? Can I expect this? Or what is that? How does disability representation look like within your organization?
Yes. Oh, so true, so true. Because when you have representation, you have at least one voice that can
Mm-hmm.
speak for others. I mean, not everyone, but it helps bring a different perspective. Natasha also said that organizations are starting to prioritize inclusivity initiatives and building them into their workplace strategies. Oh, yes. And I think that it takes people to start talking, it takes people to start sharing in order to have those changes happening. All right, I think that we are on the top of the hour, but if you have any more questions, please drop them in the comment section. We will definitely address them at some point in time because we will go back and read everything that you beautiful people just shared with us. Oh gosh, I want to say thank you to Sydney for being here. Sydney, do you have one last word you want to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think since we're on LinkedIn Live, feel free to connect with me, have the conversation, and just continue the momentum.
Definitely. And you can easily find Sydney name under this event. She is one of the guest speakers. So you can find her, connect with her. She's an open book. She is a really like a welcoming person. When I met her, I was like, let's talk. And she was like, yes, let's talk. So definitely follow her. And if you need more knowledge around accessibility and disability, feel free also to connect with me if we are not yet connected. By the way, I host a show every Friday. So if you are in for diversity, inclusion, and leadership, and so much more, stay connected. Check next on my profile the next event, and I will see you next time. Bye bye, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend.